What's going on, people? Welcome to another Emotion Football live stream. Today we have a whole lot of coaching updates to go through. We haven't really had a chat about just coaching since like Black Monday, I want to say. We've spoken in passing throughout the watch alongs, throughout just all these other streams. The comments have come up, but we have not got a chance to sit down and meaningfully just discuss coaching. So we're going to finally get a chance to do so today. I want to big up everybody that's watching live. 7 people watching live. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel on your way in, people. We're going to jump right into it. And yeah, so we're going to start with the New England Patriots, which are the first team in this article. So we got the Patriots here who have hired Mike Vrabel. Does this make the color pop? Yes, it does. Okay. They've hired Mike Vrabel as their head coach, Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator, and Terrell Williams as the defensive coordinator. So the Vrabel hire is old. Already kind of flushed my thoughts out about that. I think it's a great hire. That's a hell of a tone setter for the organization. Hell of a leader, great CEO, head coach. Obviously, a defensive guy in terms of the side of the ball he'll mainly be focusing on. And he pulled for Terrell Williams, who we can't say much about him in terms of knowing how great of a coach he is. But if you look at the 2 coaching staffs he was a part of Vrabel's staff in Tennessee and Detroit's staff as of late. So part of 2 extremely physical organizations that have overperformed their talent and just maximize what they have. So it seems like that's a strong hire. So you look at the defensive side of the ball, you got 2 outstanding coaches, 2 people who've been a part of, physical, defensively sound organizations for a while now. So the defensive side of the ball seems to be pretty well taken care of. Now, when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, this is where I guess I have a few questions. I was skeptical. So I think McDaniel's resume as an OC is pretty great. His resume as a head coach is not particularly great. But what I had mainly been thinking of is that, as opposed to looking at it that way, I was looking at it like he's great within the Belichick Brady setup and not particularly great outside of it. But then one of the people in the chat, one of my guys, Leon, let me know is that McDaniels was actually the OC in Mac Jones's rookie year when he had by far his best year of his career. So with that being the case, my tone about McDaniels may have changed a little bit. I might be a little bit more optimistic about the McDaniels hire, but we'll just have to see. I don't think May had a fair shot in terms of the personnel. So I think when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, I'm not really that concerned about McDaniels independently. For me, it's more just about, are they going to get the right pieces around May? If they give him some weapons, if they give him a line, I think McDaniels is certainly not going to hold the offense back. But I don't know if he's going to be able to work wonders if there's no viable supporting cast for May. That being said, though, from top to bottom, I think the Patriots have done pretty well with this coaching staff. I think they should be head and shoulders above the last year. I mean, I guess, last year of or what they had last year with Mayo. And truthfully, I know this might be a weird thing to say, but like even the Belichick years, what they had with Bill, like obviously Belichick is a GOAT. But his supporting cast, like his offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, Belichick was putting together some weird coaching staffs. So from top to bottom, I think this might be one of the strongest coaching staffs New England has had in a while. So feel pretty good about them. Don't think, again, that the coaching staff is going to be the issue this year. If there is something to be concerned about with them, if anything, I think it might be the personnel guys. If you see them not meaningfully make the roster better over the course of the offseason, then those are definitely some people we need to be skeptical of. But yes, Gail, good to see you in here. We haven't had a chance to have a chat like this since Black Monday, so I was excited to get back into it. But yeah, so we got the Patriots here. Again, top to bottom, feel pretty good about what they have going on. The next organization we're going to move to are the Chicago Bears. So the Chicago Bears actually have a pretty interesting thing going on. So this this article doesn't actually cover everything. So it has the Ben Johnson hire and it has Antoine Randall L joining. But a couple hires that it hasn't made note of is Dennis Allen is supposed to be the defensive coordinator. Dennis Allen, who was the Saints head coach and then the Saints defensive coordinator under Sean Payton before that. They're getting Antoine Randall L, ex Steelers receiver, who was on the Lions coaching staff as wide receivers coach. He's going to come in to be the wide receiver coach in Chicago. And then Al Harris from the Cowboys is going to be the defensive pass specialist, something like that. It's a weird title. The article, I wish the article had it, but basically it looks like these are some very solid hires. So we're going to go through it in order of, I guess, top to bottom. So Ben Johnson, head coach. First, the most important hire, obviously. My thing with Ben Johnson is, let's look at the stats before, or not the stats. Let's look at the offense before we even look at the coaching as a whole, right? Because I've heard a lot of people refer to Cliff Kingsbury and what's another good example? Kyle Shanahan's not a good example. Ooh, who else might I be thinking of? Okay, it's not coming to mind. But yeah, Cliff Kingsbury as an example of a offensive guru who might not quite be cut out to be a head coach in terms of having leadership qualities and just knowing how to run a team as a whole, as opposed to just coordinating an offense. When it comes to Ben Johnson, let's put that to the side for a second, because yes, we can say that we don't know whether this guy can be the big boss in a team. But even when it comes to his offense, something I want to talk about is I don't think there's very much from Detroit he can bring with him to Chicago. And the point here is that he's going to have to reinvent himself in Chicago. And that's where things are going to get really interesting, because we obviously know that he's a smart guy. We obviously know that his offenses were both very good and very innovative in in Detroit. But let's really get into the foundations and the pillars of what he had in Detroit and see how much of it is translatable, right? First things first, he had Jared Goff at quarterback. Now, Jared Goff and Caleb Williams, I would say, might be polar opposites at quarterback. Goff is a player his style of play is very much, I'm going to get through my progressions. I'm going to process what's going on the field very quickly, very efficiently, and I'm going to play within structure. Right? Caleb Williams is very much the opposite of all of those things. And when I talk about style, I'm not saying good or bad, superior or inferior. These are very much just different ways of playing the sport. Caleb Williams is not a player who wants to play within structure. Why? Because some of his best plays come out of structure. Some of the stuff, like if you go back to look at his plays or like his best plays at USC, a lot of it is improvised. And when quarterbacks improvise, it's not to say that they failed to play in structure, so improvising is an inferior thing. No, when the quarterback improvises, the defense can be put in some very compromising situations, because as a defense, you can't plan for something when there's no plan, right? When you play freestyle football, so to speak, the defense they can't really think things through. They are also therefore improvising. So quarterbacks who improvise, it's not a bad thing, but Caleb Williams is definitely an improviser. He's not playing in structure. His progressions and playing within the structure of the offense, going from one receiver to the other, that's not really his strength, how he plays football. So the very first point of looking at Ben Johnson in Chicago is he's not going to have stylistically the same quarterback. So again, I don't think he can really just copy paste the offense he had and drop it in Chicago. It has to change, grow, and evolve. It starts at the quarterback position. But then the second thing to look at is the offensive line. Detroit has one of the best offensive lines in football. They've heavily invested in it from a draft capital standpoint. They draft linemen pretty high. A tough, physical offensive line sets the tone for the team in terms of keeping Goff clean and opening up lanes for the running backs. Chicago does not have any sort of offensive line that's comparable. They have a high draft pick at right tackle in Darnell Wright. But to be honest, I think the tackles are okay. It's the inside that's just horrible. So the issue there becomes, again, if you want to replicate what happened in Detroit, you need the offensive line to do so, and he does not have the offensive line to do so. So that's going to be, again, either they have to make a serious investment in the offensive line, or again, what Ben Johnson did has to change, grow, and evolve. You want to talk running backs? Not only do the Bears not have the same running backs or running backs of the same quality as the Lions, they literally have the running back that the Bears didn't want. The Lions didn't want. The Lions traded away DeAndre Swift. This very coaching, like Ben Johnson, who ironically is bringing over a lot of Detroit's coaches. All these coaches basically looked at DeAndre Swift and said, we don't want this guy. Like, this guy does not fit what we do. Traded him to Philadelphia. DeAndre Swift leaves Philadelphia, joins Chicago, and here we are with a Chicago Bears team who has that very running back. So not only do they not have the quality of running backs, they have the exact running back that they didn't want. So then there's that. And then the very last thing I want to say is that, like, in Detroit, you get to play in a dome a lot and in ideal conditions. So all this, like, I think all the trickery and the fake stumbles, all that stuff is like, all that's cute. But like in Chicago, it gets cold, windy, and just very difficult to play. Like, I think Chicago football teams have to be physical, in the trenches, ground, like rushing kind of football teams. I don't think you can open it up and just throw for 400 yards the way Goff did at times outside consistently. And it's, of course, like you play your road games, but Detroit has the benefit of knowing at least half of our games in December and January, or I guess November, December, and then potentially in January, are going to be at home in a dome. So I look at Ben Johnson from what he did offensively, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, you have to give up on the idea that he's just going to bring all of what he did in Detroit and bring it to Chicago. No, he's going to have to reinvent himself, come up with something new. We don't actually know what that's going to look like. That's a pretty big unknown. So that we're going to start with there. Why do you think he chose to go to Chicago? I think it's hard to say. One, I feel like it's actually hard to say. I think Caleb Williams is realistically the main reason, because I think he would have got money wherever he went. So money can't be it. I think he could have got more power in other places, because he didn't get a chance to come to Chicago and tear up the management structure and put his own general manager in place. He's going in there and choosing to work with Poles. So he could have got more power within a different organization, like let's say the Raiders. He could have got money wherever he went. Who else had interviews? Ooh, great question. Actually, it's great that you asked this, because I found a great resource. Give me a second, people. Just give me 1 second. I'll pull up the Twitter account once I find it. Okay, Mr. Case B. All right, Mr. Case B X account. I found this guy who's been keeping been keeping track. No, I've been keeping track of all the interviews. Where is he at? Wait, what the hell? Did he delete them? What? Excuse me? No. Media. Can I not click media without logging in? What the hell is this? I'm confused. This is weird. Okay, I'm gonna log in off screen. But yeah, basically, I'll read it off my phone. Ben Johnson interviewed with the Jaguars, the Raiders, and the Patriots. So Jaguars, literally, the Jaguars uprooted everything that they had for Liam Coen. They would have done the same for Ben Johnson. So this is the thing. There's no reason for Ben Johnson to highlight Chicago other than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is clearly the draw. But again, Caleb Williams, while being a draw, is never going to be Jared Goff and can never be Jared Goff. He could be better than Jared Goff, but he's always going to be different than Jared Goff. So that's what I kind of want to highlight with Ben Johnson. The Ben Johnson we saw in Detroit will never be there in Chicago. It's going to be a different offense and it's going to have to be a different person because he has a different role. He's no longer just an offensive coach. He's a head coach. But even from a schematic standpoint, you're going to have to give Caleb a lot more opportunities to improvise. You're going to have give Caleb opportunities to be mobile and run, potentially have built-in options. You could never do that with Jared Goff. Like, what the Bears are going to get is something they've never seen before. And I just want to highlight this with Ben Johnson because this is the space for this hire to go completely wrong because they're not hiring something they've seen before. If they hired, let's say, Cliff Kingsbury, right? Not that Caleb's elite at it, but he's more mobile than Goff. Precisely. But like, here's the thing, right? Let's say they hired Cliff Kingsbury. You could say, everything Cliff Kingsbury does with Jaden Daniels, he could do with Caleb Williams, right? You could copy paste that, and maybe he wouldn't do that. And of course, they're not the same quarterbacks, but you could see it where the overlap would be, and it would be different. Different room of receivers as well. True, but I do think Moore and Adunze is still quality. Like it's a good set of receivers. This is the big one though, General. And before you got here, what I mentioned is that not only do they not have the quality of running backs that Detroit has, they literally have DeAndre Swift, the very running back that Detroit traded away. These exact offensive coaches looked at DeAndre Swift and said, we don't want you, and traded him to Philadelphia. He ended up in Chicago. They have a running back that they're probably not going to want. I think if they have an opportunity to trade Swift, they will. So they don't have the offensive line. They don't have the running backs. They have a completely different style quarterback. I don't know what we're going to get from Ben Johnson. Again, I thought what he did in Detroit was phenomenal in terms of maximizing what they had offensively. But it's a complete unknown what this Bears offense is going to look like. So I just wanted to highlight that about the offensive side of things. Now you have to zoom out. And for some reason, I thought Swift was with the Titans. Oh, they got Pollard, similarly like a small, fast scat back kind of running back. Okay, but then we got to zoom out and then also look that he's not an offensive coach anymore. He's a head coach. He has to be a tone setter for the whole team. He has to be a leader of men. He has to be a motivator. He has to be somebody that the team respects and trusts. These are all things that are also complete unknowns with Ben Johnson. So this is the kind of the ironic thing about Ben Johnson is as highly as he's rated, he's not being put in a situation where he can replicate the things he did before to become highly rated. This is a complete unknown, people. So from that standpoint, I think the Ben Johnson Chicago hire is fascinating because who knows what we'll get. But we're going to see. What I will say, though, is that the joke about beating the Packers twice a year or beating LaFleur twice a year, that's bold. That's very, very bold. We will see how that ages. 2, I think he's putting together a phenomenal coaching staff. So step 1 of, I guess, assessing how he's faring as a coach, he's made some phenomenal hires. It looks like Dennis Allen is going to be the defensive coordinator. Dennis Allen was the Saints head coach for the past couple of years and was Sean Payton's defensive coordinator. So Dennis Allen's failed twice as a head coach, but he's got 2 head coaching jobs because he's a very good defensive coordinator. So Chicago's defense, while it was a fairly good unit at times before the team just fell apart and players quit, they should be pretty good again. They also got Al Harris from Dallas, who's largely credited with Dallas's secondary having such good player development. Like, if you guys haven't noticed, they're always missing corners and they always have playmakers. Now, again, it's the Cowboys, so they're not always great. But the point is like Al Harris got a lot out of the Cowboys secondary, regardless of circumstances. He's going to Chicago. And then offensively, they got Antoine Randall L. I mean, probably a good wide receiver coach. The Lions got a lot out of their wide receivers in terms of just like Amon-Ra's a late pick. Jameson Williams, maybe you could say, has underperformed to being a high draft pick, but everybody else, your Tim Patricks and all the random people, have always like overperformed. It seems like Randall L is a good coach. So yeah, a lot of great coaches around Ben Johnson. We'll just have to see if they can get the personnel right. We're just gonna have to see how much of it they can replicate, and we're just gonna have to see what this new look Ben Johnson offense looks around improvising Caleb Williams. I was on Twitter the other day, and a lot of Chargers fans were just joking around Rojo should become a head coach. Yeah, I hear it, man. I hear it, Greg. Sometimes you need an organization to come lift your problematic offensive coordinator away from you. Hey, New Orleans, I'm looking at you. I need you to take Kellen Moore. Do you think Keenan stays? Here's the thing. I was actually talking to one of my friends about this. Paying Keenan Allen would be some of the dumbest shit the Bears could do, because the Lions never had 3 receivers. They always had 2. It was Jameson and Amon-Ra. They just kind of more or less had random people as the third and fourth receivers. You already have 2 in DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. If as many needs as you have at the running back position and on offensive line, if you put together money to give to a 30-plus-year-old injury-prone receiver to be your wide receiver 3, you are a complete joke of an organization. I think that would be a huge red flag for the Bears this year if they pay Keenan Allen. You have to go get some offensive linemen, man. You got to go get some running backs. You do not need a third wide receiver. You do not, like, it would be so illogical in my opinion. But yeah, that's the Bears, people. That's the Bears. We're going to keep it pushing and move to the Titans, who I guess had a fairly, compared to some of these other teams, not that busy of an offseason. They hired Mike Borgonzi. So Borgonzi is an assistant coach from the Kansas City Chiefs. So my thing about Borgonzi, and the only thing I wanted to say here, I don't know if there's a track record for Kansas City Chiefs assistant GMs becoming good GMs. But what it makes me think of is all the Patriots assistant GMs that used to leave the Patriots dynasty, go on to other teams, and completely suck at their jobs. I'm looking at you, John Robinson, who the Tennessee Titans hired. They hired an assistant GM from New England's dynasty. He showed up and just blew everything up. Traded A.J. Brown, had Mike Vrabel wanting to cry in the draft room while it was happening. They hired assistant GM from a dynasty, and it went horribly. Clearly, they haven't learned their lesson, and I'm just skeptical of moves like this. I think an assistant GM in that kind of situation, it would be such a difficult person to evaluate, because dude, you have Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. So if you are kind of okay at your job, it might not even it won't look okay. Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes might make your okay decisions look good because they're Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. I'm just skeptical. I think this is probably going to be similar to John Rott, like all the Patriots assistant GMs that went on to be just terrible GMs in the league. I'll keep this in, I think Poles came from Kansas City. Actually, I'm going to keep track of this later. I should have done this before the stream. I should look to see if there's any Chiefs assistant general managers that got jobs elsewhere. I think Poles is the only one. But Poles isn't known, we don't necessarily think he's great. Who did you need to keep Travis Kelce? That's wild. But yeah, man, Borgonzi, all the best. It looks like Tennessee they had a dude in their organization on a radio show talking about going best player available. So they might not go quarterback, which I think is the right move at number 1. But we're going to see, man. I just don't trust hires like this. I'm skeptical. I'm not a believer. We'll see if he can prove me wrong. But the next organization we're going to move to is the reality TV show. That is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here we are. So the Jacksonville Jaguars hired Liam Coen and fired Trent Baalke. So where do we start here? Okay, we're gonna start with the Jags. So what the Jaguars did is they showed up this offseason, firing Doug Peterson and keeping the general manager Trent Baalke, who I believe was on the Niners before this. It's always sunny in Jacksonville. Factually correct. Um, even though I mean it might be sunny in Jacksonville, but it's always cloudy immediately over the Jaguar Stadium. Like in terms of just the cloud of incompetence that covers this organization, but or hovers over this organization. Um, but yeah, so they have Trent Baalke, who, mind you, he was in San Francisco, was deemed a failure there. I think he won the divorce with Jim Harbaugh, and obviously couldn't do anything in the post Harbaugh days. I think he hired Chip Kelly. I may have the details wrong, but the point is he survived the divorce in San Francisco and didn't do anything with it and sucked, and that was it for him, right? So he comes to Jacksonville. Somehow, some way, he survives Doug Peterson getting fired, just like he survived a coach getting fired in San Francisco. And then you guys probably saw the clip, but the owner Shad Khan is speaking with the media. Baalke is on the Zoom call, and a person asks Shad Khan, if a coach tells you that they want to upgrade the general manager, would you do it? And he said, yeah. He said, we're always looking to upgrade everything. So if somebody has a good idea to upgrade the general manager spot, we'll entertain it. And that's obviously a wild thing to do in front of the person. It's pretty wild to say in front of the person, hey, yeah, this dude here, the buddy over here, is very replaceable. He has no job security. That's a pretty wild thing to do and say. Um, but the thing is that if he had no job security, he should have been gone in the first place. Um, this, like, from my understanding, main reason that Ben Johnson didn't really take the Jaguars seriously is Trent Baalke. They should have gutted him from the beginning. Maybe they would have had a better shot at Ben Johnson. But they have this garbage general manager staying in the way, some saving money, I guess. But like, so they thought, right? So then here's what happened. They saw Ben Johnson go somewhere else. They saw somebody else go somewhere else. But basically, what happened is they were talking to Liam Coen. First interview happens. Liam Coen is like, "Look, I like you. I'm not a fan of Baalke though, and Tampa Bay is looking to make me the highest paid coordinator in NFL history." That's what the Buccaneers did. So the Buccaneers went to Liam Coen and said, "Look, we know you're in Jacksonville, talking to those scrubs. We will make you the highest paid coordinator ever, just to stay here." And if you want to maybe wonder why they did that, Liam Coen is 39 and he's very young, but his resume is very impressive. So he was at the Rams with Sean McVay for 1 year. That was the year that Baker Mayfield revived his career. Baker Mayfield highlighted him as a very important part of the Rams coaching staff. And like one of the people he connected with better. I think he went from there to Kentucky in college and had a 1 year in college where he had Riley Leonard, the current Notre Dame quarterback, balling out and actually put Riley Leonard on the map. I think I may have got the quarterback and the team wrong, but I know he went and he made a quarterback hot in college. Then he came to Tampa. Coach Baker again had him balling out. Liam Coen is considered a very highly rated offensive mind in football, right? So the Buccaneers know that, look, we had Dave Canales. We couldn't hold on to him because the Panthers hired him away. We found this guy. We're doing pretty well. We're 2 for 2 hiring stud offensive coordinators. Well, we might lose this guy after, I guess, another 1 year stint. Let's make him the highest paid coordinator ever. But the condition is, if we make you the highest paid coordinator, you have to pull yourself out of the Jaguars coaching search. To which apparently he agrees. But after agreeing, he goes to Jacksonville. He said, look, Jacksonville, Tampa wants to pay me a lot of money. I'm not really a fan of everything you guys have going on. I'm out. And then Shad Khan, again, harkens back to the Zoom call, and he said, like, look, we're desperate right now. We wanted Ben Johnson. We couldn't get him. I think there was somebody else they went after too that turned them down because of Baalke. And he's like, shit. We have to just pull the trigger on Baalke now. So they fire Baalke, go back to Coen, give Coen the job. And now Tampa Bay, if you guys don't know, is very pissed off with Coen. They think Coen did some shady business. They thought they had an agreement to pay him, make him the highest paid coordinator ever. He would turn down the Jags job. They thought they were safe. They thought they were comfortable. And then he just went and took the Jaguars job. So the Bucs are kind of scrambling last minute now to find an offensive coach. Again, their coach Todd Bowles does nothing on the offensive side of the ball. This whole situation was a mess for no reason. Like, they could have just fired Balky in the first place, had a clean slate from the beginning, didn't have to do all this shady business, right? The Buccaneers wouldn't have had to deal with the lack of, I guess, the confusion about what Coen wanted to do. This has just been a wild coaching like a search for the Jaguars top to bottom. They ended up getting Liam Coen, who, again, a lot of the same Ben Johnson stuff applies to him. Of, we don't know whether this guy can be a head coach. We don't know if this guy's a leader of men. We don't know if this guy can again, just like command an organization. We know he can coach the hell out of an offense, though. So there's a lot of question marks from that standpoint. But when it comes to Liam Coen, this is the exact kind of offensive mind that you should want if you have Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor needs to have no excuses. He has Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ, great young receiver. He now has a great young offensive mind. ETN is no slouch. If they just get a couple more pieces offensively, like, you cannot look at Trevor and say you have literally no excuses, buddy. You have a great coach, or at least a great offensive mind. You have weapons. You have like I think the Jaguars did a good job getting somebody who, if he can't get the most out of Trevor, then you know officially that you've turned over every stone with Trevor, and he can be the person you got to get rid of next. But I like it from that standpoint. Again, whether he's going to be actually be a good coach, who knows? But, like, truthfully, it's Jacksonville. Like, failure is what they're used to. So if things go wrong, welcome to the club. This is just yet another coach that they couldn't figure it out with. So I don't know. Like, again, I just think this was chaotic. It was unnecessary. It was a mess for no reason. And the end result is literally Coen or Trevor Lawrence. Like, if they fail, they're both going to go at the same time, and Jacksonville can properly then start from ground zero. But we'll see what happens. General says it's that part in Football Manager where you're newly appointed and they ask you if you're keen to work with the director of football and you fire them straight away. Literally. It's literally that, General. But yeah, this was a mess for absolutely no reason. I don't know why it had to be this way. Okay, New York Jets. The New York Jets hired Aaron Glenn and some guy named Moogie. Some general manager named Moogie, assistant general manager from Denver. How good this Moogie fellow is, I have no idea. Again, you can't really assess general managers, but we just know that they have one. They hired him after Glenn, so I'm assuming this is Aaron Glenn's man. In terms of Aaron Glenn's staff, I heard he's basically going to get Steve Wilks to be his defensive coordinator, so that's pretty solid. And then some guy from the Rams offensive coaching staff. And I say some guy, knowing well that he has a name, but truthfully, the name doesn't really matter, because we just know a McVay coach is a McVay coach. You understand the coaching tree he's coming from. You understand he's going to be young and innovative, but we have no way of knowing how good he is until we see him get the job. I think his name is Nick Caley. I'm not sure, though. I just know him as McVay offensive coach, and we'll see what happens. But in terms of hiring a young, innovative offensive coach from the Rams, that's a solid decision. Hiring Steve Wilks, a very experienced defensive coach who even has some interim head coach experience that was positive. I think Wilks is a great hire. Oddly enough, I think the Jets are lining up to just look like a different variation of some previous Jets teams we've seen. Before Aaron Glenn, they had Robert Saleh. What were they with Robert Saleh? A great defensive team that had offensive question marks. We don't necessarily know if we could trust Robert Saleh as a, you know what? No, I should not be harsh with him. Robert Saleh, probably a great coach in terms of being a leader, probably a great, definitely a great defensive mind. They were a strong defensive team. The offense, right? What were they before that? A few years before that with Rex Ryan, they were a great defensive team with a coach that was probably a great leader, definitely a great defensive mind in Rex Ryan, and an offense that was Like, they had Brian Schottenheimer, teaser for later on when we talk about the Cowboys. Brian Schottenheimer at the time was a young, innovative offensive coach who had some bright ideas. His offense was mid though with Mark Sanchez. They're doing the same thing. Like, I mean, I think I look at the Jets under Aaron Glenn and I'm thinking best case scenario, they're going to be Rex Ryan's Jets. Worst case scenario, they're going to be Robert Saleh's Jets. But they're just going to be what we've seen before from the Jets. We've seen physical defense first football teams that have offenses that let them down. We've seen that happen before. I kind of think they're just going to create another version of this with Aaron Glenn. Like, no disrespect to Aaron Glenn, but full disrespect to the Jets. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what the rush is to create a different variation of something we've seen before. We've seen Rex Ryan's Jets. We've seen Robert Saleh's Jets. And if they keep AR, if they keep AR, man, that's an even worse continuation, because I don't think AR is gonna get is gonna want to do a lot of the Sean McVay stuff. Why? Because he didn't want to do any of the LaFleur stuff, and LaFleur is from that coaching tree, because LaFleur was from San Francisco, right? The Shanahan McVay worlds kind of run parallel a little bit, but Rodgers didn't like doing any of the LaFleur stuff. Do you think he's going to want to do any of the McVay stuff or whatever that guy's name is, Kaylee? He's probably not going to want to do any of the Kaylee stuff. But the Jets are just going to jet again. Like, they might make the playoffs. They might win a playoff game because Rex Ryan made the playoffs and won playoff games. But they're just going to be same old, same old. But DK to the Chargers is heating up, but I don't know. I think football rumors are different. Like, NFL rumors are a little bit different than like other things. I don't think moves actually meaningfully happen this early, or like even talks. And especially because Seattle doesn't have an offensive coach. We're going to get to Seattle later. But Seattle doesn't even have an offensive coach yet. There's no way they would entertain the idea of moving Metcalf before they know who the guy is that's going to run their offense. Like, once they get that guy, maybe, yeah, then things can heat up. But I don't think that there's any truth to this. Not to say it won't happen, just that I don't think there's any meaningful progress. Hey, next team, the New Orleans Saints, the final remaining head coaching spot. The New Orleans Saints have hired or interviewed a lot of people. That being said, I think today we got some big news that Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coach, who is rumored to be basically one of the leading candidates for them. They wanted either Brady or McCarthy, apparently. So Brady's withdrawing his name, which we saw Coen withdraw his name from the Jaguars coaching search. That's not final. It's just his intention right now. But with that happening, it looks like McCarthy, Kellen Moore will be the last two candidates. I wouldn't love either hire. By the names that they're looking at. Okay, so Weaver, Moore, Brady, like they have no chance of getting Aaron Glenn. I don't think Cliff would go. But I don't like any of these candidates. I think the Saints are going to make a bad hire, and if it's McCarthy, worst possible hire. So, what's the highest I'd give up for DK Metcalf? Let me see. I have to think about this. I have to look up his age and his contract. I'll get back to this actually, like towards the end of the stream. But yeah, Saints, man, you guys are interviewing a lot of people, re-interviewing a lot of people. Please come get Kellen Moore. I beg, please. So that's the quick recap on the Saints. Next team we're going to look at are the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Las Vegas Raiders have hired Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, 73 years old. He's going to turn 74 in week 2. I think I saw that fun fact. What's it called? Wait, hold on. I mean, if they just want some stability, McCarthy, just like Peyton all those years ago, I hear it. I hear it. Like, you're not wrong. I just think that, like, man, you're giving McCarthy a third crack at it, right? McCarthy, the person that we've only seen anything positive from meaningfully with Aaron Rodgers, we're giving him a third crack at it. But yeah, back to the Raiders. So they hired Carroll and Spytek. Carroll's going to be 74 in week 2. We're actually going to start with Spytek, the GM. First of all, that's a hilarious name. It sounds like some technology that you would put in your computer to stop like spyware from getting to your computer. Um, but yeah, I didn't know that was a name. In terms of who he is, though, so what I know about Spytek is he actually played with Tom Brady, who's a minority share owner of the Raiders now, and apparently Tom Brady has a huge role in all these decisions. But he did the general. If you need any more proof of that, the general manager that they hired played with Brady in Michigan in college, and then was in Tampa Bay with Brady as an assistant GM. So Brady's bringing in somebody he knows pretty well to be the GM. And then Pete Carroll, who, from my understanding, there isn't necessarily a relationship with, but Pete Carroll, somebody who at the very minimum is going to bring competence. Like the Raiders have been a pretty big mess for a while now. I think they had something going with Antonio Pierce, but I think the biggest issue with the Antonio Pierce era is that the first chance he got to hire coaches, he hired one of the worst offensive coordinators we've seen in a while in Luke Getsy. And the first time he had player personnel decision making, they signed Gardner Minshew to play quarterback. So I don't know if Pierce was necessarily a problem as a coach, but he was definitely a problem in terms of talent evaluation. Now, with Pete Carroll, the talent evaluation part will probably be figured out, because the issue with the Seahawks was never a lack of talent. In terms of, there were times where they didn't have elite talent, but they were never a horrible team from a talent standpoint. So that's that. In terms of what this brings for the Raiders, I think the interesting thing to think about the Raiders is that their division has Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Andy Reid. So they have the average age of that division from a coaching standpoint is 65. That is the old man division there. But yeah, a bunch of coaches with success. And I actually think, oddly enough, that may have been a part of the thinking with this, is that we're in a division full of a bunch of Grizzly vets. We can't throw a young pup in this division full of big dogs. So they wanted to get somebody with some experience, maybe a little bit too much experience. Again, I think a 74-year-old man on a 3-year contract, like even if there's a good couple years, where's the longevity there? I don't know. This almost feels like this is like a bridge coach. Like, let's have a coach come in, clean up the mess. This is a coach that obviously has a long history of like success, just to clean things up, set a good foundation, almost to like build up the base for the next coach to really like run with. I don't know if that's the thinking. That's the only way this kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, Pete Carroll's going to come in. We're going to have to see his coordinators, because he's also a CEO head coach. He doesn't do any play calling. He doesn't do any play scheming. We're going to see who his coordinators are. And that's going to be a big part of the hire, or like a big part of the evaluation of the hire. But hold on. Nola, people want some happiness. Both pro teams suck. Yes, this is true. They're a complete mess. I don't know if you can get into it, but what's Pete's record versus Peyton? That needs some research. That's a great question, though. We can look at that. That's interesting. His record, I think his record must be good against Reed. Oh, and he would have played against Harbaugh quite a bit too. But yeah, we're still sad because Spagnuolo isn't leaving. This is the truth. Actually, New Orleans, make a last minute push. That's what we need from you. Go get Spagnuolo. But yeah, that's my take on the Raiders, man. I think the GM is clearly somebody who Brady knows. So that's cool. We'll see if that works. Like, welcome to the NFL. We're friends hire friends. But yeah, we'll have to see how the Pete Carroll stuff goes. If there's another coach lined up, if there's an assistant, he might get an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator that's clearly being groomed to take the job after Pete Carroll. That'll be something to watch for. Next team we're going to look at is the Dallas Cowboys, who hired Brian Schottenheimer as their head coach. Brian Schottenheimer has been the offensive coordinator in Dallas. Did I not create a sticker for Dallas? That's tough. I'm going to make that right now. But yeah, they hired the offensive coordinator that they've had in Dallas for a good little while now. So I think there's concerns with this hire, but I think my concerns are different than most people's concerns, because in terms of who Brian Schottenheimer is, he first burst onto the scene as the Jets offensive coordinator during the Jets' peak years with Mark Sanchez, Rex Ryan. At the time, he was known as like a young offensive mind. Never took a head coaching job, by the way. He was Ben Johnson before Ben Johnson in terms of being picky about taking a head coaching job. So he never ended up making the leap. It didn't really end up working out. I think the latter years in the Jets were kind of messy offensively. Sputtered around a little bit, but I think his tenure in Seattle was positive. I think he got some of Russell Wilson's last great years. But I don't think he was necessarily the problem in Seattle. And then he's been in Dallas, where I think being the offensive coordinator in Dallas, I don't think you have a whole lot of space to leave an imprint, because between Jerry Jones being at the very top and then Mike McCarthy being below that, there's two people that have a lot more say than you. So I think it's hard to evaluate exactly what was him in Dallas and what was other people. What I will say about Schottenheimer, though, is that when it comes to a lot of the offensive minds that get head coaching jobs, we talked about it with Ben Johnson. We talked about it with Cliff Kingsbury. There's this idea of course, this guy is a very good tactical offensive mind, but is he a good head coach? Is he a leader of men? Can he command a locker room? Can he, again, just like manage, 50 to 70 players? I actually think Schottenheimer is well positioned to do that because he didn't take the leap into head coaching at a young age. I think he's over 50 years old. He's been a coach for a long time. His dad was Marty Schottenheimer, right? Like, I think there's a lot of signs that suggest that Schottenheimer might actually be good at the head coach skills. Like, all the things we're concerned about with young offensive minds, I don't really think they apply to him. And when it comes to the offensive mind thing, like, he's had some good offenses. So my concern with Brian Schottenheimer is I think a lot of people think he's trash, and I don't think we can say that. I don't think we can say with absolute certainty he's completely garbage. My issue is that this is Jerry Jones hiring another person internally, and this is just what he like. The issue is that when Jerry Jones hires somebody that he likes personally, they get too long of a leash. If you even think about this head coaching search as a whole, the final two candidates were Schottenheimer and Kellen Moore, both people that Jerry Jones has known for a while, because Schottenheimer has been the offensive coordinator and Moore was the offensive coordinator before that. So here's the issue. Like, we saw this with Jason Garrett. When Jerry Jones hires a coach that he likes personally as a guy, that person gets so much leeway. That person gets they stay in the job way longer than they probably should. And it's just more of the same. This is a bad sign in from that standpoint. Again, a lot of people's concern is that Ben Schottenheimer. Hold on, like I said, Ben Schottenheimer. Big up, Slick. Good to see you. Yes, this is the thing though. Like, I don't actually know for sure that Brian Schottenheimer is garbage. I just think that if he is, he's going to get way too much time in Dallas. I think Jason Garrett had 8 years or something like that. His stint in Dallas was way too long because people knew he wasn't good enough after 2-3 years. Brian Schottenheimer is set up to have a similar type of tenure. If he isn't good and it's clear after 2 years, it's going to take Jerry Jones 5 to 6 years for him to believe it. When Jerry Jones hires people that he likes, and this has happened before. Jason Garrett was the offensive coach, I think, underneath Bill Parcells. No, that was Sean Payton. Jason Garrett was, I think, the offensive coach with Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips gets fired, hire internally to somebody we already know. Last 2 times they had head coaching jobs, they interviewed Kellen Moore. Somebody that they already know. This time they're hiring Schottenheimer, somebody Jerry Jones already knows. I would have felt encouraged from Dallas' standpoint if they went out and they hired somebody that Jerry Jones has no personal relationship with, somebody who's vetted to just be the best coaching candidate. But that's not a Dallas Cowboys thing. If you guys, again, the fact that he hired internally is a big concern. The other big concern is apparently Jerry Jones planned to force Jason Witten onto whatever coach he hired. So this is a rumor. We're going to have to see if this is the case once if the hire ever becomes official. But apparently Jerry Jones was telling all candidates that you're going to have to put Jason Witten on your coaching staff. Jason Witten, Cowboys tight end for about over 10 years in the mid 2000s, I want to say. He's been coaching high school, I think, as of late. But yeah, again, another situation where Jerry Jones personally likes a guy and wants to work with somebody who he personally likes. And the idea became, you're not interviewing the best coaching candidates. You're interviewing the best coaching candidates that are willing to take Jason Witten, a random high school head coach from their standpoint. So yeah, there's concerning signs about this hire. But I don't think any of them are that he's just downright garbage. Like I'm telling you guys, he might. We don't know that for sure. We can assume that. Obviously, he's a nepo baby, Marty Schottenheimer's kid. But that's most of the NFL. Most of the NFL, these guys all benefit from nepotism. Spy Tech in Vegas. Come on, this guy played football with Tom Brady in college. Now he's getting hired by Tom Brady. But yeah, my bigger concerns are the fact that this is an internal hire of somebody who Jerry Jones has a personal relationship and actually likes. But yeah, we're going to go to the next organization. That's enough Dallas talk. We're going to go to the San Francisco 49ers. And I was hoping that Brock would be in here, because me and Brock were actually talking in the chat a few streams ago. I want to say a couple weeks ago about Robert Saleh being the defensive coordinator. I did not think it would happen. I don't actually think it makes a lot of sense from his standpoint. I think it's a great hire for the Niners. Obviously, he's a defensive coordinator that got them to a Super Bowl, one Super Bowl already. But yeah, like, he's a great defensive coach. We know this already. They fell off last year from a defensive coordinator standpoint, going from Saleh to D'Amico to Sorensen. I don't even know who Sorensen is, but I don't even know if he has a job anymore. But you went back to Saleh. That's great. They promoted Kubiak. So I think his name is Kyle Kubiak. Clint Kubiak, the brother, is a free agent now because he was the Saints offensive coordinator. But he looked pretty good before the Saints quarterback situation fell apart. The Kubiaks, kid of Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak was a great offensive mind. The Kubiak Shanahan systems are pretty similar. So I think Kubiak was a coach underneath Big Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, and then Kyle Shanahan was an assistant under Gary Kubiak. And now Kyle Shanahan is hiring all of Gary Kubiak's kids. And then what's his name? Clint Kubiak was a sick offensive coordinator for the Saints this year. And now Kyle Kubiak just got promoted to offensive coordinator because the Niners hadn't had offensive coordinators since Mike McDaniel. They have a passing game coordinator and a running game coordinator. They almost split offensive coordinator into two jobs because Kyle Shanahan is the big dog offensively in San Francisco. But they gave Kubiak the promotion to OC, meaning that they want to give him a bigger role, probably because a bigger role is the only thing that would keep him in San Francisco, meaning he's probably pretty highly rated too in the league and in San Francisco. So it looks like the Niners actually bounce back this offseason to get some pretty good coordinators. Robert Saleh on one side of the ball, it's not Kyle Kubiak, it's Clay Kubiak. See, random generic K name. I apologize, people. I think they're going to need it because it looks like their roster is only going to get weaker and weaker once they pay Brock Purdy. But what you need when you get a weaker roster is you need great coaching, and it looks like the Niners are setting themselves up to be a pretty well coached next year. Next organization we're going to look at, Houston Texans, who fired Bobby Slowick. This was a shocking move to a lot of people, myself included, but I think ever since it happened, I learned a little bit more and more about why it happened. So it looks like the Houston scheme this year was really bad about when running the ball early and being predictable. Constantly put CJ Stroud in third and long and constantly had him not being protected adequately. So there's a lot here. I didn't know he did a bad enough job to get fired. And I think a big part of my surprise with this is how late it happened in the cycle, because a lot of offensive coaches have been, this is hilarious, Jen. A lot of offensive coaches have already been getting snapped up. So you're Houston and you're arriving to the party late. You're arriving to the party looking for an offensive coach where 5-6 of the best offensive coaches are gone already. So my concern for Houston is that If he was so bad and you needed an upgrade, sure. But did you not know this as soon as the season ended? You should have been in the hunt for another offensive coach much earlier than this. Much earlier than this. The odds of them upgrading from Slowick to me do not seem the highest. And that's my issue. That's my main issue. So I hope for the best. They should go get Clint Kubiak. They should go get the Kubiak from the Saints. That would be a great hire. But aside from him, I don't know. The options don't look great. So we're gonna have to see what happens. But yeah, also, hold on. I think I may have not said this. Big up King and big up Disco, man. Good to see you guys in here. But yeah, kind of scared for Houston. Also, if you look at the way Stroud came back down to earth, the best part of having a young quarterback on a rookie deal is that you have an early contention window that could never be matched when you eventually pay your quarterback. You had a great rookie year, but realistically, you're never winning a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. You messed up the second year. You now have to hopefully get a good hire for the third year. But if you don't get a good hire, year 3 is gone already. This has kind of been a bit of a disaster for Houston. Was any of Coleridge's slump contributed to his firing? Other way around, I think they viewed his failure contributed to the slump, and the slump was the justification for firing him. Like, I think the slump was the evidence. I don't think they looked at it like I think they looked at it was his fault that CJ Stroud slumped and had a bad second year. So if that's the case, then the quarterback coach should be gone as well. This is true. This is absolutely true. I don't know if they fired the quarterback's coach, but that's actually something I'm going to look into. That's a very interesting point. But yeah, like for Houston, again, if they end up with a worse offensive coordinator because they showed up late to the party looking for coaches, then again, they've just messed up another year of this, unique window they've had to make a Super Bowl push with the cheap quarterbacks. So we'll see if it works out. But these are all the main teams. I can rip through a lot of these teams that I guess I've already kind of talked about in passing that have made more smaller scale moves. We have the Colts hiring Anarumo. So I think this is a big hire from the standpoint of he's a quality defensive coordinator. I really think he's damn good at his job. I think he got the short end of the stick in Cincinnati. I think they just needed a fall guy, and he just happened to be it was going to be him or the head coach, and they picked him. We're going to talk about the Bengals later because they're looking to hire his. I think they've narrowed down who they're going to opt for his replacement. But I think Anarumo's a great defensive coordinator, but I don't think having a great defensive coordinator alleviates any of the major problems in Indy, because I don't think Steichen is a head coach yet. Steichen is a great example of what could go wrong for Ben Johnson, because Steichen was a great offensive mind in terms of play designing and play calling in Philadelphia. We clearly regressed when he left, like last year. But just because you can design plays and call plays doesn't mean, like, again, you can be the leader of men. You can be the leader of a locker room. You can be a tone setter for 53 to 70 people. But yeah, that's the thing. Great individual hire. I don't think it solves the rest of your issues related to your head coach and your general manager. But in a vacuum, hell of a hire. The Cincinnati Bengals moved on from Anarumo and appear to be hiring Al Golden from college football. Al Golden was the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, the Notre Dame team that went to the college final. And the Notre Dame defense was amazing. They were like the best, clearly the most significant part of the team in terms of like why Notre Dame was good and able to get to a college football final. But Al Golden is not like a new face. Al Golden I think he's 55. He's bounced around. He's coached a bunch of college teams. He was actually the Bengals linebackers coach like 3 years ago. So this is kind of like my issue here is that you didn't go for something different. You went for like literally somebody who worked underneath Lou Anarumo to replace Lou Anarumo, somebody who's not a fresh face that has a bunch of potential. He hasn't really ever panned out in the NFL like that. He's been a respectable college head coach, but that's a very different world than being an NFL defensive coordinator. You're giving him very bad personnel because that's what went wrong for the Bengals last year. For about 3 to 4 years now, they would lose a different key defensive player every single offseason. So the Bengals defensive personnel has withered away over time. They don't really have the pieces. Now they downgraded at coach, I think. So I think the Bengals, uh, they're fighting a losing fight defensively. I don't know if they're going to be able to have an offseason where they just all of a sudden bring in 3, 4 big defensive pieces and this guy's great. But I don't know. I kind of think the Bengals coaching staff is destined to fall apart next year. Like I think the coach gets fired next year and they clean house. Um, but yeah, man, Joe Burrow deserves a much better. Joe Burrow deserves a much better. Okay, to close things out, Cleveland Browns. They made a couple of changes. It doesn't say it here, but the big changes is that what's it called? The head coach. What is his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Hold on. Do I have to look this up? What is the Browns head coach's name? Browns head coach. I'm gonna feel very dumb once the name Kevin Stefanski. Okay, so Kevin Stefanski, he's gonna resume play calling. So he delegated the play calling responsibility to the guy who got fired, the offensive coach that got fired. They promoted the quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator, but then Stefanski took the play calling back. So he has a lot of responsibility next year. We're gonna see if that works out for him. But yeah, any BC Lions news? Can they take Easton Stick from us? I'd love to see Easton Stick in BC. It's funny you bring that. Jimbo, out of curiosity, why did you specifically say the BC Lions? I'll respond. I'll say more once you answer that. They can take Joey Bosa from us. Did you talk about the Raiders? Yeah, I did talk about the Raiders. We can revisit that at the end if you want, King. They can. Okay, so if they take Bosa, because they're gonna, I think Hendrickson is a free agent. If they replace Hendrickson, the sack leader, with Bosa, an injury-prone player, boy oh boy. I just heard their team. So the interesting thing about you saying that is because, so I live in Toronto, but I was actually born in Vancouver, which is where the BC Lions play. So technically, if I were to have a CFL team, it would be the BC Lions. And Easton Stick, a random North Dakota quarterback that I didn't think was that bad in the pre-draft process. So if Easton Stick went to the BC Lions, I might tap in and watch a couple of games. But yeah. Cleveland, again, just Stefanski has a bunch of responsibilities now. And the situation's so bad, he's probably setting himself up to get fired. Seattle, they've been looking for an offensive coordinator all offseason, and they still don't have one. Like, they still don't. I don't know what they've been doing. They've had 3 weeks to hire an offensive coach, still haven't hired one. Let me see who they've interviewed. I have the tracker here still. So the Seahawks, for their offensive coordinator position, they've interviewed Vikings assistant offensive coordinator Greg Udinsky. Who the hell is that? Hank Fraley, who's already agreed to stay in Detroit. Clint Kubiak, the Saints offensive coordinator. Okay, that's solid. And Thomas Brown, the interim Bears head coach. If they don't end up with Kubiak, this is a disaster. Jump the ship, DK, come to us. Oh, right. I told you I would revisit this. Let me check really quickly. DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is 27. He'll be 28 in the middle of the year. Spot track. Hold on. General, can you look up what Devontae Adams cost? I think he was a 3rd-round pick. If Devontae Adams costs a 3rd-round pick, DK Metcalf. I think I may have just run into why this is a complicated situation. Because Metcalf is in his final year. Okay, if you're basically trading for Metcalf, you're essentially trading for a free agent. Because I'm looking at his contract. Let's see. This is option prorated restructure. This table is so hard to navigate. What the hell? Cap hit. Okay, you're basically trading, by the way, for a free agent. So you're trading for somebody to pay them immediately. There's no contract that you're inheriting. that you can just sit on. So because you're trading for a free agent, I actually don't think it's worth paying more than a third or fourth round pick. If you trade a second round pick to then just go pay him $30 million a year, that's a massive investment. And I don't think that it's worth it for a 28-year-old receiver. When I'm going to be so honest with you, the state of receiver in college right now is really, really good. I think there's so many good young receivers. Paying a second round pick and then $30 million a year on DK Metcalf, who's 28, and especially the style of player he is, he's heavily reliant on his physique, right? He's not like a nifty route runner and a technician. He's a athletic phenom. Those kind of players, they don't age the best. So a 28-year-old Metcalf, I would maybe spend a fourth, maybe a third round pick, and then I'd pay him. Like, obviously, I don't want to downplay who he is as a player. He's a great player. But you just, from an asset management standpoint, look how they drafted McConkey in round 2. I would probably just go draft another receiver in round 2. You can go get another lad, 100%. If you're the front office that found lad, you can go find another lad. And in Greg Roman's offense, 2 lads is all you need. Or as Jen Will would say, Ledidi. Yeah, we're just gonna wrap this up. Seattle, you got to figure this shit out. You have to figure this out. It's taken far too long. And then the last one, finally, is that the Falcons hired Ulbrich. We already talked about this a little bit, but mid coach goes to be a defensive coordinator underneath a mid defensive head coach. And I'm just still skeptical about the Falcons. So it is what it is. Not much to say about here. If you were us, Higgins and DK, Higgins, because he's younger. And he has a style of play that has more longevity. Higgins all day, every day. But yeah, I have to go back to this for King about the Raiders. Out of curiosity, King, what do you mean here? Has to be a generational hater. What happened? I don't necessarily understand the reference here. But yeah, just my thoughts about the Raiders was this GM hire is weird because like it feels like Brady just hired his friend. Pete Carroll, on the other hand, I think the coordinator hires are going to be very important because I think this only makes sense if Carroll is like a bridge to, again, just be a proven, veteran, respected figure that sets a foundation for the next guy to run with. So if you get a coordinator that looks like a head coach, that's going to be groomed, maybe it makes a little bit more sense. But if you don't have that kind of a setup, I think it's a weird hire with no longevity. Like, yes, he's going to bring you guys probably from a lower level team to a middling team. But why is that the ambition? So I don't know. Oh, I wasn't even looking at this angle. I wasn't even looking at this angle. This is true. Carroll versus Harbaugh, the rivalry is renewed. They were coaches at the Niners and the Seahawks together. So, yeah. They had beef. Oh, and they were college coaches. Wow. I totally forgot about this. Yeah. Carroll and Harbaugh were coaching rivals in college on the West Coast, Stanford and USC. And then in the NFC West, Seahawks, Niners. Oh, my God. Pete Carroll. Those matchups just became more interesting. Chargers Raiders matchups. But yeah, those are the thoughts, man. I think we're just gonna have to see the coordinator hires. I think the coordinator hires are going to be very, very, very important. Disco Flash, worried for the game tomorrow? Oh, okay. Why are you like? Is it just a general worry, or are there parts of the game specifically that worry you? Because I still think you're okay for what it's worth. I would not be too stressed. As a Chiefs fan, man, you have a lot of reason to feel confident. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, people. Shout out to everybody in here. This was a lot of fun. Just like the Black Monday stream, these coaching chats end up being a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot more streams that are just chats like this throughout the off season. And it's gonna be a good time. So tomorrow we have live streams for both games. Both championship games. So make sure you guys tune in for those. And right now, I'm actually going to set up a stream to start on my NBA channel, Toronto Hoop Talk. So I'm going to set up a live stream for I was gonna say Falcons Raptors, and that's hilarious because the Raptors are playing Atlanta. I'm gonna set up a live stream for Hawks and Raptors, and we're gonna do that right now. So I'm dropping the link for the channel right here. So if you guys want to continue the chat, you guys can follow me over here and over there, and we can keep talking over there. But I am gonna finish this live stream and keep it pushing. And I'll see you guys in the either the NBA stream now or on the NFL streams tomorrow. This was a lot of fun. Hope to have more fun with you guys tomorrow or later today. And I'll see you guys in a bit. Take care. Hold on. Y'all also get the most BS flags. I'm expecting these to be holding flags too with the most flag team in the NFL. But yeah, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Take care. I'm out.